What's up, His2? My name is Cody Reed. I'm a seminarian from the Diocese of Baton Rouge. I want to talk to you all about a topic that means a lot to my faith, something that's really given me reason behind some of the things that I go through. If you checked out the title, you know that this thing is suffering. So to start off, I'll address the question that everyone asks, especially in a secular society that we grew up in. That question is, why does God allow pain and suffering in the world? Well, the short answer is, because He is God. But to better address the question, I will say that suffering and pain enter the world because of original sin. Nothing that we do brings suffering upon us, in the sense that we are getting what we deserve. Also, we know that without suffering, there would be no compassion. Now to address the question more directly, why do we suffer? I will give 4 reasons from one Dr. Peter J. Kreeft in his book titled Catholic Christianity. He uses quotes from another amazing book that anyone who has questions about the Catholic faith should take a look at. It's called The Catechism of the Catholic Church. So anyways, back to Dr. Kreeft's 4 points. A. It can make a person more mature, helping him to discern in his life what is not essential, so that he can turn toward that which is. Taken from Catechism 1501. B. Dr. Kreeft states that illness can be a teacher. It makes us wise by showing us what our pride naturally ignores. Then he backs us up using the Catechism 1500. In illness, man experiences his powerlessness, his limitations, and his finitude. Every illness can make us glimpse death. C. Directly from the Catechism 1501. Very often, illness provokes a search for God and a return to Him. And D. From the Catechism, he says, suffering can also have a redemptive meaning for the sins of others. This is taken from Isaiah 53:11, found in the Catechism at 1502. Dr. Kreeft adds to this saying, and we can offer it up for them. We may make a more powerful contribution to the good of other souls on our sickbed and even our deathbed than at any other time in our lives. Illness does not destroy or even lessen our active participation in the mystical body of Christ and the communion of saints if we use our suffering by uniting it to Christ. Suffering is a task, and God often sends the greatest crosses to those He loves the most, those who can use them most effectively. Offering up our suffering for others also helps us to focus on a reality outside ourselves and overcome the temptation to self-absorption. That is one of the worst effects of illness. So that concludes his list to answer the question. Now, the one that has really had the biggest impact for my spiritual growth is the teaching that suffering is redemptive. What this means is that one can accept suffering, unite it with Christ's suffering on the cross, in a way magnifying that suffering which has already been endured for the forgiveness of sins, and making that suffering larger than it already is. Through our suffering, we must continually point to the cross. The cross is Christ's pain, Christ's passion, and the purpose of Christ's life, which causes this cross to become our salvation. And since we are able to unite our sufferings to the cross, we take a part in salvation, not by what we do, but by the grace of God. This participation in salvation is what allows suffering to have a redemptive quality and enables us, through the mercy of God, to take suffering for the salvation of our own or another's soul. How cool is that? I mean, we have a God that is so awesome, so loving, that He would allow us to suffer for others, and in doing so, He brings us closer to Himself. If this were not true, then the awesome saints who suffered so much and all the martyrs who gave their lives died for nothing. St. Paul says, I find my joy in the suffering I endure for Christ. This is where we truly grow in our relationship with the Lord. Padre Pio, Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Saint Bernadette, Saint Paul, Saint Peter, Saint Stephen, Saint Francis, and all these awesome and holy people suffered and took on this suffering, which eventually brought them and all the souls that they suffered for to our everlasting King. Now, what servant is greater than his master? Christ suffered, and so shall we. Suffering is one of the most beautiful things that we can do, and is a beautiful expression of true love. This teaching is just one more reason that I love being Catholic. So remember, offer it up. Now I'll leave you with 2 verses, because God says it way better than I do. From Romans chapter 8, verse 17. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if only we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. And from Colossians chapter 1, verse 24. Now I rejoice in my sufferings for your sake, and in my flesh I am filling up what is lacking in the afflictions of Christ on behalf of his body, which is the church. I leave you in God's infinite and eternal love.